Alright, hello everyone. I am Corey Zarius, one of the community helpers on the Dual Universe Discord. I've been talking about making a video like this for a while. It's probably going to end up being a series of videos where basically I want to try and condense as much knowledge of this game as I have into a digestible format. I see a lot of the same questions over and over and over again on the Discord. I see a lot of misinformation flying around. I see a lot of confusion and lack of understanding, and it makes sense. This is a very in-depth game. There is a lot to it, like a lot. I know a lot of people say the tutorial doesn't really cover enough, and I've made the joke multiple times that if the tutorial needed to cover everything, it would probably take 40 hours. Um, so it's probably going to be a while. So I decided to start from the beginning. I fired up the test server or the demo server on Steam so that I can go through the starting experience as my kicking off point for this video. So first and foremost, character creation. It's not a lot to it, and all of this you can change later. So it's really just a series of colors. If you got some of the founder packs or something, there could be other options here for visual appearance. I didn't, so I don't have those. I was a latecomer to the game. I was partway through beta when I started. So I'm not going to bother setting any of this up, really. We'll just go with whatever it defaulted to, but basically you can just change like the emissive colors, the primary, secondary, whatever, which just changes sort of the color of the armor. You never really see yourself in third person in-game for the most part, so it doesn't really matter. Next comes the starting outpost. So this part does kind of matter a little bit. It can affect your early game experience, but honestly, um, since we're not right at the very, very beginning, like right on launch, there's so much materials flying around. People have made so much stuff in game that the difference that you get from having an extra container or an extra fuel tank or whatever is not really important. Um, you can probably get some random person to give you everything that you would need to make the difference between this and like between any of the individual starting outposts. So at this point in the game, I would say honestly, pick whatever you like style-wise. Um, if you set it up on Haven, which is the intended purpose of it, it's going to be sort of your home base. Eventually, you'll probably expand out somewhere else. If you want to jump in running, you might not even want to set it up on Haven. Um, it's possible if you end up in like an organization or something and they have territory somewhere else, you might want to just keep it in your inventory and go somewhere else with your group and set it up there. You can also take a blueprint of it and compact and like just remove all of the pieces, put them in a container, and move them somewhere else later. It's a bit of a process, but it's doable. I've done it a few times now. So again, I'm not going to bother going over these in great detail. You can sort of see the aesthetics. You can see there's some slightly different features on each of them. They might have more container space. They might have some basic ship part bundle. Sometimes they've got some cool canopy windshield, armor windshield here on this one. They're all on a small static core except one, which is specifically the station outpost. The station outpost has the most storage capacity on it. It also comes with a medium atmospheric fuel tank and a radar, mid receiver, basic ship parts bundle. Basically, it has the most stuff in it of any of them, but it's smaller. And the core sizes go by magnitudes of 4. So basically, a small core is, sorry, 8, I should say. A small core is basically if you take an extra small core and you stack it up into a 2x2 by 2 of those. So it becomes 8 times the size. And then a medium core is 8 times the size of a small core. And then a large core is 8 times the size of a medium core. So the difference that you have in space between an extra small core and a small core is literally a factor of 8. So if you're planning on taking your starting outpost and expanding it into a little factory, do not pick the station outpost as your starting point. That's the only major point of advice that I would say, because the rest of them will give you more room to grow. The wave also, I believe, has the most honeycomb in it. So if you're planning on just tearing it down for parts and you want to have some honeycomb for building something else, it's a lot of concrete. And concrete, counterintuitively, is very light. So it actually makes a good shipbuilding material. That's a whole thing that I may or may not get into more detail about. I'm going to pick the wave for now. The starting speeder, again, similar thing, doesn't matter that much. There was a bug when the game first came out. I'm not sure they ever fixed it with the Novark Cursor and the Novark Exacutus. where they actually had some troubles where when you got out of the seat, sometimes you'd get stuck inside the ship. So I'm not going to pick one of those two because I don't want to have that happen again. So I'm going to stick with one of the original two from the beta, which is the Novark Speeder and the Novark Racer. I'm going to pick the Racer just because. Doesn't really matter. So your starting experience, you're going to start on Haven. This tile that you pick here right now is forever yours. You will never lose this tile. Because I'm on the demo server, there's almost nobody here, if not anybody here. Okay, there's 139 tiles claimed, so there's a few people who have played on the demo recently, so you can see this here. You're not going to get anywhere near this close to a market in the real game because you keep these tiles forever. In the real server, they're mostly surrounded by people who have claimed tiles. I'm going to start pretty close just for demonstration purposes. It's worth noting that these ones here, that symbol, means that it has a spaceport, whereas this one does not. So this one here has a spaceport which you can take to Alioth. You can take a shuttle. So you can, if you can just walk in there or park your ship there, you can walk over to a shuttle and just take yourself off to Alioth. So I'm going to pick near one of them because I want to have that ease of access. So I'm just going to go here. So this starts the tutorial and the opening cinematic and everything. Just for time, I'm going to skip this. It's kind of a cool backstory. Earth was getting destroyed, yada yada. I think it was a black hole or a star going supernova or one of those planet killers. And then I'm going to skip over this stuff here. I'm also going to just turn down my volume because there's some parts here that I can't skip. So I'm just going to crank this down so we don't have Ophelia talking over me. So this is where you start. You start in your little landing craft. It's got a pilot seat. It's got an emergency control unit. I don't believe that does anything at the moment. This is unskippable. You have to get in this seat. If it bugs out and you start the game and you're not in this ship, and you're down on the planet surface or something, you have to just open a support ticket with Nova Quark. It's a bug that happens sometimes. It's unfortunate, but it's life. When I started, there was a bug where because I had a bunch of recruiter friend stuff, I had too much mass on me, so I weighed an extra like 60 tons, so my lander couldn't stop and just smashed me into the ground, and I died right off the get-go. That was a fun first day. But you know, first day, there's always more bugs. So going to come in and land here and we'll see where we go. You don't actually have to touch anything here. She says you should brake and yada yada, but it doesn't make much of a difference. The ship also has a couple of useful parts on it, so for just starting off, you can strip some pieces off of this and they're handy going forward. I'm going to end up just skipping most of the tutorial because you can play through it and experience it when you're starting the game if you're a new player. But you'll get what you get out of that. I'm going over some of the slightly more advanced things for the most part. So here we are. Come down and land. No problemo. Deploys my territory unit. Then Ophelia lets me out of my ship. And now you can just hit shift backspace and end the whole tutorial, and boom, you're done. Again, if you're actually a new player, I don't recommend doing that because the tutorial does actually give you a lot of useful information. So here then, you've got a blueprint. So these are compacted blueprints. So this symbol here, your little tube thing, means that it has all of the things in it that you need in order to make that construct. So right off the get-go, you have your outpost as a compactified construct in your inventory and your speeder. So I'm actually going to start with the speeder. No, that's a lie. I'm going to start with the outpost. Okay, so we're going to start with the outpost, drop it here. I'm not going to give it any fancy names or anything or put it underground properly. Often you want to sort of line it up so it's on the ground so that you can walk up into it. I didn't bother with that, but here we are. So this is your starting outpost. So the tutorial will take you over like how to use the mining units and everything, which I will actually go over as well because there are some things that I want to go over there. There is a new feature, this is quite new, for how you can actually place blueprints. So here this blueprint here, I'm going to deploy this. It has everything I need in it already. You can actually look at something and hit middle mouse button, and then click on here, and now I am working in reference to this parent construct. So basically, I'm going to deploy my speeder in relation to my actual outpost. So you can get some nice precision controls here. You can use the arrow keys to move around. Control arrow key moves it faster, left, right, up, down, page up, page down, and place it here like this. One very cool piece of that is that going forward then, if you want to build a ship that has like pieces attached to it that are actually different ships that you can remove, you can literally place it exactly precisely in the right spot. And then if you ever undock it, you can redeploy it. You can like tear it down to core components, make a new blueprint, and redeploy it in exactly the right spot. So if you've got something you want to have like precision docked, that's the only way to really do it. Trying to actually land something on something else and precision line them up doesn't really quite work. So we're going to deploy this guy. Now the tutorial then would take you through fueling up. So I'm going to do that. Right now that's on 3, which I hate, but I'm going to fill the sucker up. And then I'm going to show the thing that actually made me decide to make this video in the first place. Was I ran into someone who had been playing this game for weeks and did not know that you can compactify ships. So basically, now that I've deployed the ship, I can just look at it, hit Alt-B, and pop, it's back in my inventory. Fuel and all. And now I can come over here and just, not inspect, sorry, equip. You can also double click and deploy. And boom, here's my ship again, ready to roll. So yeah, that's deploying the ship, blueprints. So now I wanted to go over some blueprint details. So this starting speeder is, to be blunt, not really good. It could use some serious modification. And it's wild how many things you can modify on it to make it much better just with what you have to start. So over here, if I come over here and hit B to pop into build mode and hit 1 for my deploy element tool, some things that you might want to steal are a brake and a couple of these stabilizers. And just with that, I can now come over here, hop into build mode, and get my stabilizers. If you look at the little gear thing, you can actually perfectly line up with the element that's already there. So here, and again, then arrow key around. So I'm going to place that right there. And then this one, I'm going to place right there. And then I'm going to grab this brake that I got. And we're going to put it, I don't know, up here somewhere. Just going to put it up on the voxel work. Boom, done. And then we're going to take this guy here, this engine, which is pointing forwards to push you backwards so that you can reverse. I never really want to reverse, so I'm just going to take this guy and I'm going to put him back here. I'm going to look at something relatively flat to start with. The little gear trick doesn't work if you're moving an element, only when you're placing an element. And we're going to put that here, and boom. Now all of a sudden, this ship can fly. So here we're going to run the default auto configure, flying construct, boom, and we can take off and fly. And because I added that brake on it, she stops really fast. So we don't have a whole lot of engine thrust here or a whole lot of lift, so she doesn't fly super well, if I'm being honest with you, but it can get you around. And then we'll land, hop out of this sucker. And I want to cover some mining things. So early game experience, the first thing that you're going to do really is probably set up your mining unit. That's going to be the easiest source of income right at the start of the game. So here, this mining unit, on my tile I can see, yeah, if you had a territory scanner, In the late game, you can do this without having to own the tile. Early game, basically, when you have a tile, you put down a mining unit, and it tells you what ores it can have. So this is a basic mining unit, which means it can handle only the lowest tier of ore, which we call T1. T1 is coal, hematite, quartz, and bauxite. You can see here. On this tile, we can see the quartz is the one that I have the most of. So I'm going to pick that one just because it's the one that I can get the most of. So we're going to start it. And then we're going to calibrate it. Actually, I don't think I can calibrate it. Yeah, it comes calibrated. So I can't calibrate it. But basically now this, there's a bunch of complicated math. I did a video about this before, but it's going to be producing a certain amount of ore every hour. So this is the timer here. So in 59 minutes and 37 seconds, it's going to drop 35 liters of ore in my container here. And it's going to keep doing that for 3 days. And then after 3 days, the calibration charge will start ticking down at a rate of 0.625% per hour. So at that point, basically after 3 days, it will take another, I think around 7 days, I think it takes to go all the way down to 0. And as that percentage reduces, the amount of ore it's producing reduces. Pretty straightforward math, but it's a little weird to wrap your head around. And then other than that, the way that you can gather ore is with your harvesting tool. So here I will find that there is a bunch of ore on my tile. The second thing that made me decide to make this video was finding out that people didn't know about auto harvest. So you can just come here with your harvesting tool, click it, hold it until you get it, and boom, I have some silicon. The auto harvest is if you click the middle mouse button, it will just harvest whatever you mouse over if you just leave it there long enough. So here I don't have to actually click, I can just look at a thing and it will immediately start harvesting it until it's done. So I can just kind of walk around and point at things, and after holding them for a second, they will magically appear in my inventory. And these are all going into my nanopack currently, because that's what I have. You can actually link to containers in order to have them go into a different container. So here, if I come on over here, this is my container hub for my base. So I can link to that, and then you have a range on your link container for how far away you can be and still connect to it. That's something that you can skill up, which is a great tangent for talents. It's important you start your talent queue fairly early, because your talents accrue at a rate of, it will end up being 60 per minute by default and 90 per minute when you are currently training something. Currently, because we're still in the first 6 months of release, it's higher than that. So right now it's 90 per minute when you're not training anything and 120 per minute when you are. But that will only apply for a few more months. So get in there now. So mining and inventory is where all of the stuff around your mining and your inventory space and all of that stuff comes in. So here, the surface harvester was what I was just doing. So surface harvester efficiency, you can see here, I can reduce the time it takes to harvest, and also I can make it so I actually get more. So here, right now, if I walk over here and I harvest this and we see what happens at the bottom of my screen, it will pop up and say, I got 30 liters of quartz. Now if I hit F2 and come here and train this talent, training spends points that you have. Queuing will make it come over time and just sink points in towards that as you go. So right now, I honestly advise everyone to just start off with your link container distance. Almost everybody is going to want to have some link container range. So here, if you just go to stock control, primary container advanced augmentation, click on the level 3 and queue. Right now, that's going to take 33 hours to do everything it needs to do that. Because it automatically queues up all the prerequisites you need. So first it starts with your nanopack upgrades to give you some more volume, and then container proficiency to give volume to containers that you place. And then it's the primary container augmentation, which has to get up to level 4, which adds an extra kilometer onto your range. And once you unlock level 4 of primary container augmentation, then that unlocks primary container advanced augmentation, which starts adding a percentage. So here, if you get another 3 points into this, you've basically added an extra kilometer on your range, which was already 250 meters. That's up to 1.25 kilometers, and then an extra 30% on top of that, and ends up being something like 1.6 to 1.7 kilometers. So at that point, you can actually connect to a primary container and walk almost 2 full kilometers away. If you fully train at both skills, you actually break over 2 kilometers that you can get. But that takes a lot of points. More on that in a second. But yeah, so it lets you do all kinds of things. So if you're doing asteroid mining, the asteroids are only a maximum of 500 meters in radius, so it's a kilometer from end to end. So if you have over a kilometer of link container range, you can just park your ship on the surface of the asteroid and mine directly into your ship, no matter where you are on the asteroid. Super handy. Cannot overstate the importance of this skill. So I strongly recommend everyone to just pick this right off the get-go and hit Q, and now your Q is working on something. So, oh, sorry, it's 135 per minute. So now your queue is working on something. You can buy these later if you want, if you have the talent points available. If you did the recruiter friend bonus, which again, highly recommend. Having the recruiter friend bonus gives you an extra 1,000,000 talent points right when you start, which is about a week's worth at the regular talent point acquisition rate. Currently it's less than that because currently we're getting more. Yeah, definitely recommend that. Also gives you some time, gives you like more than a day to think about what you want to actually sink your points into while it's accumulating at the full rapid rate. Oh, I don't think I ever actually went back to. So now that I have bought this point in surface harvesting, it was 30 liters before, and you can see it still says 30 liters for what I'm going to get, but then when I actually mine it, I get 31.5. So there's 2 different skills that improve that. The surface harvesting optimization, and again, improved surface harvesting optimization. This is a very common trend in the game. There's often one level and then a second level, and you often have to get a certain amount in the first level, often 4 or 5. So here, if you get 4 levels in this one, which gives you 5% per level, then that unlocks this one, which only gives you 3% per level. But it also costs more for the 3% per level one. So it's sort of a diminishing returns and an increase in cost. So the level 5 of the 5% takes 1.125 million talent points, which is a little over a week of training once the rates slow down. Currently a little under. Whereas this one's 1.5 million for the top tier one. So there's a lot of that in this game. If you want to really max out something, you're looking at probably weeks, sometimes months of training to get to be the best of the best at something. But if you're okay with just being okay at something, you can get really far by just putting some levels in something. So like here, if I wanted to go to piloting, say, an atmospheric engine pilot, if I wanted to be like, yeah, I want to be like the best atmospheric pilot ever, I'm going to get like level 5 of this one and level 5 of this one. We're going to do all that and just queue all this up, go boom. It's going to take 27 days. But if I go, I'm like, you know what, actually, maybe level 4 is fine. Maybe level 4 is fine of that. Maybe level 4 is fine of that. And this one here, actually, altitude efficiency, you see, it actually requires level 5 of fuel efficiency. And that's a lot, so I actually often don't even take this one. So if I just drop this one, drop off the level 5 on that one, then here I'm still going to be getting 20% reduced fuel consumption. I'm still going to be getting a 20% increase in my max thrust, minus 40% in the warm-up time of my engine. It's only going to take 4 days instead of 27 days. So you can get, like, I could then go and do like my ailerons and my space engines and my brakes and improve all of my stuff across the board to a little bit in the same amount of time it would take me to do this one really well. And that's the same kind of trade-off you're going to be seeing everywhere. So like I have a character that I explicitly just do industry on, and on her I have put up to level 4 on all of my ore refining. So there's a whole bunch of different skills for all the different types of ore, and I've gone through all of them and I've pumped them all up to level 4. And I've got literally every single type of ore, T1 through T4, because that's all I'm working on right now, capped up to level 4, but none of them to level 5. But if I were to take just one of those sets and bring them up to level 5, it probably would have taken me just as much time. Like if I was like, I want to be the best at doing T1 ore, I could be the best at that, but I wouldn't have had the talent points to spare to do any of T2, 3, or 4. Now, by the nature of the game, you can continue training forever, so you can eventually get there. But it might end up taking years, months, years. Could take a while, but you can eventually max out all of the things that you want to do. Um, just, time. Generally good to always make sure that you have a queue here going, just because the talent point rate is something that goes forever, but it's also something that you want going at the best speed that you can for as much as you can. So yeah, I will just leave those there. Next thing I wanted to go over was tools. So by default, for some reason, in beta, it had all of your tools. Well, it had your toolbar filled up to start. Now it doesn't for some reason. You have to actually put them on there yourself. So when you're in build mode, those tools are there already. But when you're not in build mode, they're not. And I couldn't tell you why. I personally have the way that I like it from the way it was in beta. So for me, I always just go through and I place everything exactly where I expect it to be. So, for instance, deploy construct is 8 for me, deploy ground element is 5. If you're doing mining, there's not actually enough slots for everything. So I normally have directional detector on 4 and where is it? Scanner on 3 for when I'm mining, and I swap out 4 and 3 for other things when I'm not. So for that, I do flatten tool as 4, and I don't normally do smooth voxel tool, but if I do need it, I would put it on 3. And then, yeah, sorry, I lost myself here. So directional detector, harvest, maneuver is 7, mine is 2, refuel is 6, and repair is 9. And that's how it was in beta. So that's what I do. At least I think it was. That's how I was by the end of beta. I don't think I changed much. Might have changed around these guys a little bit. Anyways, doesn't matter. So, those are the tools. So some interesting things with those tools. Mining tool is used for mining ore. You can also use it for digging holes. If you hold control and scroll wheel up, you can make a bigger circle. So this basically is how big of a circle of ground am I going to rip up. So if I just click and hold it, boom, rips out a big circle. Oh, I need my audio back on. I never did that. Hang on, let me do that. So you can actually hear what's going on. It's important for mining because you hear the sound and you get used to that timing, right? So you click it, pop. And yeah, there are talents then that you can use to increase the size of that sphere, to make it go faster. And importantly, there's also ones for terraforming. So here, if you're using smooth or flatten, or more importantly, actually, if you're using the directional detector or the scanner, then if you were mining on an asteroid, you would use the scanner in order to figure out where you need to go. And this circle that it starts you with is so small, you can't really use it. So if I start trying to dig a hole and walk through it, I can't fit in that. That's uselessly small, right? But that's real easy to fix. You're just looking for under Terraformer, there is the dig tool optimization. So this makes a larger selectable digging sphere. So this requires a higher operations range. So if I just go train talent here, and then hop down to dig tool, and here, I believe, if memory serves, 2 points is enough to make a hole big enough that you can walk through. So that just took like 8,000 points or something. It's not that much. Now you can hold control and go 2 clicks up, and now it's big enough that you can walk through it. Nice and easy. So if you're doing any asteroid mining, it's very key to get that skill because it will help you get around. G puts your tool away. A lot of the tools have talents associated with them. So under Equipment Manager, you can make your refuel tool go faster. You can make your repair tool not only go faster, but also actually give more health when it's repairing your stuff. So here, that's actually an excellent segue for how the repair tool works. So in your starting thing, your lander, it comes with a container somewhere. I can't remember where. There it is, hidden under the chair. That has a little bit of scrap. So I'm just going to pop that into my inventory here. And if I recall correctly, if you don't hit the brakes, often it actually slightly damages something on the way down. So here, something broke. So repair tool, I put it on 9. All the tools that you use, you actually end up with this thing over on the side, this quick access bar. So you can actually put your stuff there. So here now I have the iron scrap there. I personally always layer my tiers of scrap up here. So I always have a tier 1 here, a tier 2 here, a tier 3, a tier 4, and a tier 5 if I have it. And then when you're repairing, you can just scroll wheel. You can just move your scroll wheel to go between different things. So here I can just go fix that sucker. And you see it has 57 HP, and the iron scrap I believe does 25 at the start. 26 apparently. So yeah, so now I've repaired 26. So if I were to do another 26, that would only take me to 52, which isn't quite enough. So if I just get this repair tool optimization, which requires 4 points in efficiency, so I'm going to sink most of my points into this, unfortunately. And then get that. Then here, that still wasn't enough, but it's 54, so it did a little better. All right, yeah, so that's the repair tool. That's a rundown of the tools, the talents, deploying blueprints, digging, harvesting, how to change your ship off the start to make it flyable. Next things I want to cover is like money making, Lua, just some basic Lua for like flight scripts and things like that. But this has already been a half-an-hour video, so I think I'm going to call it there on this one, and I will pick up here next time and start going over the next bits and pieces. So this one is probably not very helpful for anyone who is experienced in the game. I'm going to put a warning about that right in the description, because this is mostly beginner stuff. But I just wanted to start at the beginning and start building the foundations up. So hopefully some of it helps somebody, and more to come.